Hello, and welcome to our online positive behavior support series. Today we'll be talking about developing a Tier 1 reinforcement system. If you've been following along with our web series, you know we are addressing the benchmarks of quality one section at a time, so today we're focusing on number 22 through 28. And our goals for this section are to understand the rationale and guidelines for developing a reward system, so why should we have a reward system in the first place, and then brainstorm some different strategies that might work for rewarding students and staff for positive behaviors. Remember that if you want to see more of a certain behavior, it always helps to provide an incentive and make that behavior fun for people. So these are our benchmarks of quality, 22 through 28, so you can see them on the screen. A system of rewards has elements that are implemented consistently across campus. A variety of methods are used to reward students. Rewards are linked to expectations and rules. Rewards are varied to maintain student interest. Ratios of acknowledgement to corrections are high. Students are involved in identifying and developing incentives, and the system includes incentives for staff and faculty. So as you go through and self-rate on your benchmarks of quality, reflect on these items, and then at the end when we get to action planning, your team can work on developing any action steps you need to address those areas where you might have rated yourself a little bit lower. So our connections to the Marzano framework were focused within Domain 1 on Design Question 5, which revolves around engaging students. Design Question 7, recognizing adherence to rules and procedures. And Design Question 8, establishing and maintaining effective relationships with students. So very strong connections within those design questions. And then under Domain 2, because reinforcement systems benefit all students, but they really especially benefit those students who might be struggling, we have connections with planning for the needs of students receiving special education or those students who might lack support for schooling. So thinking about the why or the rationale for rewarding positive behavior. This is important to address because sometimes you might have philosophical discussions among your team or among the staff in your school about why we need to reward students for the behaviors we want to see. And on our Canvas course, we provided some resources for you under Tier 1 that go into details about the research behind providing reinforcers for students, and why you might really find it beneficial to your school climate, your environment in your school to reward positive behavior. It's very important to be aware that there is no research showing that having an external reward system harms intrinsic motivation. It's actually helpful, especially for those kids who might be disengaged from school or not see a lot of value in following the rules at school. So it's actually helpful to provide those external rewards to build intrinsic motivation. When we're talking about rewarding students, they can be just about anything. Rewards aren't just tangible trinkets that we hand out to kids. It's very helpful to offer a variety of rewards because not all students will want the same thing. And you may find that if you are using the same reward for a while, people kind of get used to it and it's not as effective. So you may want to talk with your team while we're looking through this list about things you've seen as effective rewards. So for example, social rewards could include free time or preferred seating. Activities could be things like computer time, a pass to a sporting event if you're a secondary school, or some type of after-school event. Sensory rewards could be visual or auditory, listening to music, getting to choose a different level of lighting or something like that for the room. Escape could be something as simple as a free homework pass. Not something that would harmfully impact academics, maybe something like a break or a 1-minute ticket that would allow the student to take leave class 1 minute early or take a 1-minute break. Might not seem like much, but students really enjoy things like that, especially if they can leave class a little early on a day when something valuable is going on, like maybe something special in the cafeteria for lunch or an activity. And then tangible rewards are anything that hasn't already been alluded to in these other 4 types of rewards, so things like items from the school store, stickers, any kind of physical reward. A lot of people think that rewarding kids might mean just giving them tickets or tokens. Token economies are just one example of how a school-wide reward system might be designed, and they can be very effective, but they have their own set of drawbacks and suggested strategies. So we've identified some of those here. So benefits, fast and efficient feedback. They're flexible, so you can modify them to meet the needs of your kids. And it lets you build that bridge to the long-term reward because kids are earning tokens to use towards a longer reward. There are some logistical concerns. You have to be careful of counterfeiting, and then making sure you have that staff buy-in, so that so you get full participation. If your school decides to do a token economy, there are some logistical things that need to be worked out before you roll it out. So just a couple of examples. How many tokens do we need to have printed for a certain time period? And how many should each staff member distribute? So this helps encourage those who might not want to give out the tokens, and it also helps rein in those people that might overuse them and give out too many. There are some alternatives to token economies. So these are just some things that schools have used successfully as school-wide rewards that do not involve a token economy. And while you're viewing these, please feel free to talk with your team about other things that you have seen that are not based on token economies. For example, written recognition could be given to students privately or publicly. Some schools have posted the notes around the building. Some have used these for peer recognition. I've seen schools do recognitions on their website or on their marquee outside the building, or even on school social media. Public recognitions might be announcements, pictures in the hallway, again, pictures on the website, of course, keeping student safety in mind, and also the students' preferences. Some kids don't want that public recognition and some really do. Classroom or grade level competitions might include the class with the most students demonstrating a certain behavior on a given day or on a certain period of time could earn a reinforcer. So the administration might call down to a classroom and ask the teacher if all their students did a certain thing or how many students met that goal, and the whole class might then qualify for a reward. Surprise events are also very effective, so the principal or another team member might just pop into the classroom and all the students that are doing the desired behavior receive a special treat. So that could be an ice pop or a piece of candy, or they might be invited to attend a special event once the lesson is over. A positive visit to the office. So if staff see a student demonstrating the desired behavior, they immediately get sent to the office for a positive referral rather than a negative. Positive phone calls home, very effective in gaining that parent involvement and support. And then all of these are ideas that can be used within token economies, of course, but they can also be used outside of a token economy system. This is a sample of a positive student referral, so this just shows what it might look like if staff wanted to have this type of form to recognize positive behaviors and really identify what it is the student is doing to earn that recognition when they're making a positive office visit or a positive call home. And we'll put this template on the Canvas course for you as well. Remember, when we're talking about rewards, we're not just talking about rewards for students. So we want to think about everyone, students, staff, and families. So for families, schools have given tokens to parents to help parents reinforce their child for doing some of the items that are listed. Others have maybe developed a family store or a raffle system. So some ideas for monitoring the fidelity of system use. We want to make sure once we set up our reinforcement system that it's being used as we anticipated. So one idea is using sign-outs. So having the rewards kind of bundled together, and all staff receive the first bundle with some guidelines on how to distribute them. So here are your tickets or your tokens, and these are the guidelines for giving them out. And then staff can sign out additional bundles as needed. But the sign-out sheet is telling the team who's using the system, how much they're using, and at any given time how much is being given out. So that kind of helps you monitor how your system is being used, who's using it, and any cost associated with it. Signatures can help. That helps you prevent counterfeiting or theft. So actually having the staff and students sign the bottom of the ticket once they get it. Some schools will code their tickets or their rewards by grade level, so maybe a different color ticket or different symbols or different prizes to reflect different grade levels or different teams within the school. And then surveying students, so asking kids about when was the last time they earned a reward, maybe a focus group discussing how long it's been for them. And this might be helpful as a regular part of implementation, surveying students about when they received a reward and then also what kinds of rewards they would like to receive in the future. So getting their input about how they're accessing the system, but then also what they would like to see, what would be effective for them. Rewards are a teaching tool, so they should be used more frequently after teaching a specific behavior or expectation that helps solidify the lesson. This also translates into rewarding more at the beginning of the year when a lot of teaching of behavior and procedures takes place. And then, of course, strategically throughout the year when you find the need based on your data to reward more often. Rewards should be used more often in those locations or situations that are more likely to lead to problem behaviors. So think about your cafeteria, your school buses, your high-frequency areas. If a student is not eligible to earn a reward, they might not see a reason to try to behave. So we want to avoid strategies that allow students to claim a reward before they actually get to enjoy it. For example, during lunch, a student using their tickets to buy a ticket to a dance if that takes place at the end of the day. And then after lunch, they get in a fight or break some kind of expectation. That puts us in a bad situation with figuring out how to handle that. If teachers complain that they never see a student demonstrating an expectation, it might be helpful to shorten the interval of time or the amount of work necessary to earn a reward. If a student never receives a reward, they're really not getting the benefit for this system. So we really want to think hard about how we can catch our students being good, identifying the positives that they're exhibiting, and then building on those. So here are some specifics about how to reward. So the way we give rewards can really impact how effective it is. So we want to make sure we're training staff on how to give this immediate reinforcement, including naming the rule or expectation that they're seeing when they provide the reward. So you have an example there with a very specific statement identifying the student, what they did, what expectation it's aligned with, and then what they're going to earn. We want to be very careful not to take away or threaten to take away a reward once it's been earned. It's also helpful to share information with families so they can provide rewards at home as well in that same format. And families might have some creative ideas for those positive verbal and social acknowledgments that are especially reinforcing for children that the teachers might not even think of. It's also helpful to share that last bullet about refraining from taking away rewards with families as well. Parents sometimes don't understand the reasoning behind this, and they might do it at home because they see it as the natural thing to do when the child is misbehaving, but it's actually sometimes setting you up for more conflict and more difficulties. We've alluded to some of these points on the slides before, but consistency is such a challenge that it seems like it warrants its own slide to kind of summarize everything and put it in one place. So teaching, and we want to connect our reward system with the behaviors we're teaching. We want to make sure it's purposeful and meaningful when we're rewarding those expectations. Offering a variety that keeps it effective. Establishing a hierarchy, so maybe you earn tickets and you turn in tickets for something else. Some rewards or reinforcers are bigger or worth more than others. Surveying your students, your family, your staff can really help give some creative ideas. Make it as easy as possible, so easy for staff to implement, things that will not take a lot of time or a lot of effort, but will still recognize the students. And then using and sharing our data, and sharing data beyond just the staff in the school. So we want to make sure we're sharing it with students, with families as well. So some specific data points we might share are the decrease in problem behaviors. For example, if you're working on decreasing tardies and you see a certain percentage decrease in a month, making that announcement to students and parents can be very helpful and effective. The question often arises about how much money is needed and where to find the money for rewards. It really depends on what the team decides they would want to do. For example, there might be printing costs associated with tickets or punch cards. And the team should not get hung up on this because most of the things students really want are free, like social time, positive calls home, going to the front of the lunch line, maybe sitting on a beanbag in class, sitting with a friend during lunch. And surveying the students can really help you get a pulse on what they want. For things that would cost money, a few suggestions looking at maybe your school advisory committee, PTOs, community partnerships, donations and fundraisers. Some of the grants, I know Pasco Education Foundation sometimes has creative teaching grants that they offer. So just looking at some of those different creative options. And parents really do need to know the why, the how, and the outcome of PBS implementation, as well as what their role is in order to understand and support. And that includes obtaining and helping obtain financial support for PBS. Your parents can be a great resource in connecting with supports there. Once you've explained the purpose and the process for implementing those intended outcomes, parents will buy in and be your biggest advocates. So making those connections to classroom reward systems. If you attended the full day PBS training, you know we focused a lot on classroom systems. So then making those connections between the classroom and the school-wide system, which will help strengthen your outcomes. The classroom systems are really developed by teachers, and they incorporate those Tier 1 rewards at the classroom level, definitely including that immediate specific praise. And research really recommends at least 4, sometimes some of the research says 5 positives to every negative statement that students receive. And then, of course, acknowledging when students meet those expectations and follow the classroom rules and routines. So here is an activity you can engage in with your team. If you're watching the YouTube video, you might want to stop the video at this time and just review what we have looked at so far related to reward systems, and then brainstorm some ideas for your school's reward system. So maybe about 10 minutes as a team, brainstorming and coming up with some ideas for how you might structure that reward system, what you might use, and just initially starting that plan. If you're looking for some resources and video examples, we have our own PBS playlist on Pasco County's YouTube channel, and there's a link right there. So when schools send us examples of good things they have going on, we add them to that playlist. So for example, last time when we talked about teaching and lesson plans related to behavior, we got some great videos of students demonstrating positive behavior expectations in the cafeteria and on the bus, and those have been added to our YouTube channel along with these webcasts. And then Florida's Positive Behavior Support Project also has a great YouTube channel with a lot of videos from different levels of schools. So when you're ready, please refer back to the action plan for your team and record any activities that need to be completed. So some things to think about are, what do you need to do to inform and involve stakeholders? And that includes students, staff, and families. And then how might you address those benchmarks of quality where you might have scored yourself a little bit lower? And just to review what those are, we can look at that slide again. These are the benchmarks of quality related to Tier 1 reinforcement systems. And our follow-up for today is 2 parts. So first we have a discussion post on Canvas with some questions. So how do you consistently implement a reward system across campus? How are students involved in identifying and developing those incentives? How will you provide the incentives for staff? And then how did you decide upon what incentives to use as rewards, how to structure that? And then we also have a place to upload a video. So if you are able to film some students describing the school-wide reward system and upload that on Canvas, that would be a great resource that all of our schools could benefit from. So we can view that and then share it with everyone via the YouTube playlist. Thank you for your attention and participation today, and I look forward to seeing your follow-up.